to our second research methodology workshop. This week we are going to discuss about the research methodological issues that we face with. We will also touch upon the research data collection, the questionnaires. Thank you. And we will also focus on the methodology, quantitative methodology and the quantitative methodology. And then we will proceed with the review of literature so that you can prepare better for your second assignment. And besides that, we will also look at your first assignment, how you did it, what are the loopholes, weaknesses that you have, and how to improve. So these are the things that we are going to talk. Right? So, as we learned about the research methodology in our previous classes, that research is a scientific method of investigating of any problem that you would like to look at, or you would like to explore, would like to understand it more. And as part of that, we looked at the epistemological, ontological issues and deductive-inductive methods. And we also discussed about the, for instance, inductive method. Inductive method of research is basically dealt with the, you are collecting the data, and based upon this data, we are trying to build a theory. So it's basically like a theory building approach. Whereas in the case of deductive research, on the other side of the coin, you got the existing theory and you are going to test the theory with your research. So that is the glaring difference between your deductive method and the inductive method. So here we are trying to build the theory. And in inductive method, this is deductive, and inductive method, so what we are doing here, there are so many theories that we have. Within the management, within the business, within the finance, within economics, within administration, within the human resource management, and so on and so forth. Now, we are trying to test the existing theories with that of the data that you collected, the problem that you are trying to investigate. So, this is the glaring difference between the inductive method and the deductive method. And we also looked at the normative methods that we have. The science we have one side, on the social science we have on the other side. We do have quantitative method of approach and the qualitative method of approach. Now, the quantitative side, we looked at issues pertaining to how to quantify, how to measure the problem that we try to identify. Now, when we look at expenditure, you are trying to investigate the expenditure pattern of a consumer. Now, because of the VAT introduction, or because the VAT has been increased from 14 to 15% since last month. Now, as a result of this, how your expenditure pattern is shifting. Your income remains constant, but your expenditure changes. Now, how your behavior changes. If you would like to quantitatively measure this, then we will be using the deductive method, where we try to look at the variables, the independent variable and the dependent variable, and we will keep the independent variable constant, whereas the dependent variables, they will be flexible, and then we try to measure. So when the income remains constant, when your expenditure shifts, now how a particular consumer, a particular household is behaving. That's what we look at. All right. So this is about the deductive and inductive methods that we looked at. And we also as you can see, yes.
So you gave an example of the deductive. Can you give us a practical example of the inductive field?
Okay. In inductive, it's more like a qualitative study. We are collecting the data with the help of a questionnaire, with the help of observations, with the help of many other instruments that we normally use, and whereby after you collect the data, you try to analyze the data. You look at the perspectives of the people, how they are expressing over a particular question, and how you can summarize that. And then from those content analysis, you would try to build a theory. So that is what is inductive approach. Now, from inductive, what we are looking at is qualitative approaches, whereas deductive approach, we are looking at the quantitative approach. So this is the basic difference. Hope you understand it. Thank you. We also look at business research. In MBA, we do the business research. We don't do the educational research purely. We don't do the psychological research purely. There may be some aspects here and there we mix up, but our purpose of doing research is different. So in the business research, we got the theory, as I just mentioned, we got the values, and we have the practical considerations, we have epistemology, we have the ontology. Epistemology, on the other side of the coin, is just like, it is more like a perspective that we look at. It's like a positivism, and we also have the constructivism. So now, as part of our dissertation that you are going to do next year, that you will be basically focusing on the business research. And now, can you tell me something about what you understand by the quantitative research? Some of you, as part of your first assignment, you stated about the research method that you are going to use. Some they say you are exclusively using the quantitative research methods, where you will have, we will talk more about the quantitative research in the course of today and tomorrow. And some of you also said qualitative research exclusively. And then some they say you are going to use the mixed methods. Now, which method would be appropriate, and how we determine a method is more applicable for our research? Now, can you just share a light? Fred, you can tell us your thoughts about what you understand by the qualitative method of research. Yes.
Well, in my view, the quantitative method is not more about the numerical values,
Right.
but then you use the theory to come to a particular conclusion. Giving the fact, for instance, like what alluded earlier on, it's based on the observations, it's based on the people's views when they throw information in form of a questionnaire, or because like in interviews, then you get to a conclusion.
Okay.
It's not like when you use your numerical data to come to a particular conclusion. That's my understanding.
That's good. Can you just say something about the quantitative? I think you are an engineer and you wanted to do a study with the quantitative measurements. Can you share
Actually,
your thoughts? What exactly you understand about the quantitative side of the methods?
morning. Actually, if you look at my proposal in the class
Yes,
assignment,
I looked at that, yeah.
I sort of thought I'm going to do a bit of both, quantitative and qualitative.
Okay.
Quantitative based on like my colleague just said, numerical values. There's so many things, and so many of these things are like this and that, and you sort of collect the data, you analyze data, you come to some kind of conclusion. And qualitative, the way, well, my understanding, it can be exploratory in nature to say, but this is happening. I just would like to know, why is this happening? How is this happening? And stuff like that.
Well, there is a resentment among most of the researchers, even the professors. What they think is that quantitative method is the better method than the qualitative one. And those who adopt the statistical methods and techniques, and those who adopt the econometrics, those who adopt the mathematical models, and they quantify, they scientifically measure, and they analyze the data. So they value more to that. And whereas if somebody does the research with the qualitative aspects, they undermine it. So that is the resentment. There is no research. Quantitative and qualitative, they are two sides of the same coin. And every research has got its own importance. We cannot undermine the qualitative research, and we cannot overvalue the quantitative research. So both of them are important. Both of them are equally important. So there are so many, we do have Nobel laureates who are exclusively did some economical studies, and they got the Nobel Prizes based upon their quantitative studies. So sometimes if we look at only the quantitative side, if we measure, if we don't adopt the scientific instruments properly, if we don't follow the methods and techniques, procedures, then we may have a wrong picture, a wrong conclusion actually. At least in the qualitative side, you can see, you can try to look at different perspectives of people, and the perspectives have been listed there. So, now therefore we need to conclude here that we need mixed methods, or we need both the quantitative and qualitative methods. They're equally important. Yes.
When do you know which one to choose though, like when you do your research?
Well,
you know that it will effectively do a proper
that's a
research.
very good question. Well, when we say measurement, when we say determination, now when we are looking at the exchange rate determination of South Africa, is it having any impact on the exports and the imports of South Africa? So this is a quantitative study, where you are trying to look at how the exchange rate is fluctuating over a period of time. Now, probably a year ago, we experienced that US dollar, for instance, it went up to 17 rands. And for the past maybe 1.5 months or so, it came down to 1180. Now it remains with 1250. So how this fluctuation in the exchange rate determines our export base or our import base? So normally in economical studies, business studies, we look at the more devaluation that takes place. For instance, if it goes to 17, the understanding is that it's a devaluation. We are devaluating our currency in terms of other foreign currencies in the world. So what do we understand by that? Meaning that our exports will increase because in the foreign market, South African products become cheaper. So let's say $100, that is about 1,700 rands. Whereas our imports will decline. Because if we want to buy a foreign product, that became expensive. Instead of paying 1,200 or 1,250, we are paying 1,700. So the domestic consumers will try to see the commodity is more expensive and they will try to explore for the domestic commodities. So we try to promote the domestic industries and we give more priority for the domestically or indigenously produced goods. So this is what is good for us to fix our balance of account or trade deficit, for instance, trade balance. So this is one aspect where we are trying to look at the quantitative study, how because of the change in the exchange rate, how much imports are being increased or how much exports are being increased or decreased. So that is the quantitative study. If you wanted to look at qualitative aspects on the other side of the coin, that you have people that HIV/AIDS and the perceptions of the people. How do they see that disease in the real world? What is the perceptions of employees working at, let's say, Mafeking municipality? And is it like a social stigma, or do the people discuss about that problem actually? Now, what kind of measures that are being adopted? What kind of preventive actions adopted by the management of Mafeking municipality or the Department of Health in the province? So we are looking at different perspectives, how they are seeing the disease and whether they understand that problem or not. Although the problem is existing for more than since 1984. So this is one of the qualitative side. Now mixed method, obviously that we would use some portion of statistics whereby we would try to calculate the percentage. How many percentage of people are within the age group of 20 to 30 years of age? Whether this percentage of people, do they understand the problem? Whether they, maybe ABC principles, whether they could be in a position to state or probably prevent themselves from the issues. And they also, this is the age group. So when we are preparing the age group, maybe we prepare a pie chart. These are the people, maybe 30% of the people are falling in the bracket of 20 to 30 years of age. Whereas 50% of our targeted population are maybe 30 to 50 years of age. So we are trying to quantitatively look at that picture. And these many people are coming from this ethnic group. Most of the people from Tswana, there could be some Isikosa, there could be some Vendas and many other people. So we are trying to look at, okay, how many Vendas are there in that particular picture? Then we see only 5% people are from Venda, or maybe 8% people from Zulu. So we are trying to look at. So we will see the picture and we are quantitatively measuring that. So it doesn't mean that our study is purely quantitative there. We still got the perspectives. As some of you try to look at the students, how many students they could understand accounting. Whether they are having a fear when they look at accounting or economics. Whether they have any fear, psychological fear, that they are terrified with statistics, or they are terrified with algebra, they're terrified with equations. then how do we try to find a solution for that problem? So those are all qualitative studies per se. All right. Sorry, this I've got some issues. Normally, okay. Now, we have the different types of studies. You might have heard about the time series analysis, which is a quantitative study. We have got cross-sectional analysis, where you can try to have a quantitative side, we can also have a qualitative side. So most of your studies at our MBA, at the business research, we will be having cross-sectional studies. And then we will have a panel data studies, cohort studies. So these are the different studies that we have. Now, when we look at the time series analysis, what do you understand by time series analysis? Some of you might have read, some of you might have undertaken the research before, that what do you understand by time series? Anybody in the class? Can anybody share the views? Professor Ravinder, you would like to add something?
Time series, basically you're looking at trends over time. What is happening? For example, I'll look at my field of study.
Right.
You're looking at rainfall patterns in Mafeking.
Rainfall.
Yes,
Patterns.
rainfall patterns in Mafeking.
Okay.
And then you can take over a period of 30 years. What has been happening in the rainfall pattern in Mafeking over that particular period?
Okay.
And sometimes you can plot it in a graph form,
Yes.
so that you can see the trends,
The trend.
yeah,
Okay.
over time.
Right. That's good. Any other ideas? Tapelo, you want to add something about time series? All right. So, in time series analysis, we are taking one time. Let us say in 2018, Mafeking is receiving a good amount of rainfall. Within this particular period, we are taking one point of time, that is 2018. Within this 1 year, what is happening as far as rainfall is concerned? So rainfall is one variable. You can take multiple variables. Now, as a result of rainfall, what is happening with the agriculture sector? Whether the maize production is improved, or the wheat production is improved or decreased, or how the vegetables, how is the livestock, what is the impact of this rainfall on the livestock? So we are taking various variables and we are trying to take only one period and we are trying to assess what is happening. So we are looking at the trends, whether there is a decreasing trend or an increasing trend. If it is so, why? So that is what we look at in time series analysis. And on the other side, every year, National Statistics Office, NSO, they undertake so many quantitative studies, time series analysis. We got National Statistics Office, we also got Department of Labor. They do conduct income and expenditure survey. Household surveys. National statistics, national income statistics. Now when they do this, what do they do? How do they do? So they take 1 year, whether it is 2017 or 2018, in this particular year, what is happening in the overall population. Now unemployment rate, we always quite often quote that it is 27.2%. Now how we come to this 27.2%? It's climbing up. What are the reasons behind that? So all these things we use the time series analysis. So remember that in one period with variables, multiple variables, and we try to measure what is happening. If you take the cross-sectional analysis, how do we do that? The cross-sectional studies. What do you understand by the cross-sectional studies actually? Some of you mentioned in your assignment 1 that you would like to use the cross-sectional study. So what do you understand by that? Anybody in the class? Matlab you wanted to say something about cross-sectional? Any idea? In the cross-sectional studies, we look at different variables and different we are trying to look at different types. Sorry. In the time series analysis, we are trying to look at different times and we are trying to look at different variables. Please try to remember that. Now, for instance, 2000 to 2018. What is happening with regard to the exchange rate? What is happening with regard to the poverty? What is happening with regard to the agriculture production, industrial production? That is what we look at for the time series analysis. So we are taking multiple periods, whereas one variable we are taking, and we are studying deeply what is happening. In the cross-sectional, it is on the other side of the coin. In the cross-sectional studies, what we are trying to look at is that you will be looking at, let's say, different variables. In one single period of time. So, that's what we normally do as part of the cross-sectional analysis.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. So, now when we look at these two, cross-sectional as well as the time series, they are not complete. They are not giving us complete picture yet. One is giving us only different times and one variable we are looking at. Here we are taking multiple variables in one single period. Multiple variables and single time. So what do we understand by now? In research, we not only take multiple periods, but we also take multiple variables. Then how do we solve that? What is the other alternative method for us to adopt, to investigate? Now that's where we have the panel data. In the panel data, hope you understand the difference between these three. Time series, multiple times, one single issue that we are investigating, and in the cross-sectional, we are taking the other side, only one single period, but multiple issues. Here, panel data, different periods we are taking, and different observations we are looking at. So that is why the panel data has got more importance in research. Right. Do you have any doubts up to this? So we looked at time series. We looked at during the course of today, tomorrow, we'll also look at some more details of time series and what is panel data, how the panel data can be addressed, how the methodology can be prepared based upon the panel data. We can also look at the cross-sectional issues and so on and so forth. Now, do you have any questions or clarifications?
So can I just maybe for one last time just repeat the differences between the three?
Okay. Time series. If you take time series and we are looking at unemployment in South Africa. Since 1994, after independence, until 2017, we're looking at unemployment. Right? Whether the unemployment, in the beginning we used to have 15%, 18% unemployment, we moved to 22, 24, we used to have for a long period of time, then we reached to 27. So we are looking at the trend, how the trend is changed within this 24 years of period.
So we're looking at only one variable?
One variable with multiple periods. So that is why time series. Right? Whereas in the cross-sectional studies, we are taking 1 year. In 1 year, how the situation looks like with regard to our performance. We are talking about exports, we are talking about imports, we are talking about agriculture, we are talking about industry, we are talking about our graduates that we produce of 1 year. That is 2017, let's say. So, looking into multiple observations, taking one period, that is the cross-sectional study. So that is clear. All right. Now, if we understand these two methods, they are not complete. They are not providing us a panacea or a permanent solution to investigate into different issues. Because now we don't remain with one problem, we remain with multiple problems. Then how do you study those multiple problems? So there are so many studies that are being undertaken. If you look at, let's say, Environment. Climate change environment. It has been changing, rapidly changing over a period of time. There are so many studies that have been undertaken by IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change. Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, it's a United Nations organization. What they do is that they conduct studies. They take so many countries, few countries from Africa, few from Europe, few from Asia and Latin America, and so on and so forth. They try to see, they take the multiple variables and they try to use the panel data approach. So now we can understand, and even if you look at the higher education side, how the expenditure has been made in higher education. To produce one graduate, how much money are we spending? We have different faculties here again. We have medical sciences, which is always expensive, which engineering is also expensive. Science faculty, science, agriculture, technology related, also maybe third category, probably it is also expensive. We have EMS, we have arts, humanities. Now to produce one humanities graduate, are we spending 10,000 rand? Are we spending 100,000 rand? If you produce a medical graduate, medical doctor, are you spending probably 2 million rand on that graduate? What is the unit of expenditure? So, if you take in the whole of South Africa, all the 24 universities that we have, and how the expenditure patterns have been shifting on different faculties. So we do have, and over a period of time, for the past 24 years down the line, how our expenditure patterns have been shifted. And historically, if you look at prior to independence, during the apartheid regime, the expenditure at the school level was spent maybe 1 rand on a black child,